Welcome to Frickety Frack. We do talk back. Thank you for joining us in our third episode of this season of Frickety Frack.
Hello, my name is Patrick, and I'm Frack.
Hello, my name is Jeff, and I'm Frick. Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back is a show airing once a week where we will discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. For this season of the podcast, we'll be going through the miniseries Kingdom Come and how we see lessons from the issues that connect to the teachings of the Bible. Just as many as you are, we are also fans of other things as well. So when we finish Kingdom Come, we will go in a different direction and look at anything ranging from anime, comics, video games, movies, or just about anything else that we're fans of. We got the name of the show from our father, who dubbed us Frick and Frack since we were kids.
So we are in part 3 of the Kingdom Come mini series, and this chapter is entitled "Up in the Sky." And so in this issue, we begin with visions from Norman McKay of the coming apocalypse. And in this, Spectre reveals that Norman is the one who is driving their places and locations and times. Like it's Spectre's not the one doing the hopping, it's Norman. Well, Norman's like leading it. And Spectre, I think, is just facilitating it, I guess. Because Norman doesn't have any powers, but that's the way I interpreted it. They appear at the Gulag in Kansas, where they have that prison has been filled beyond capacity with the metahumans who have gone against Superman. We see what life is like in there and see how Superman is trying to teach them about right and wrong through a hologram. The inmates argue and the guards push back a little, and you can tell that the tensions are high. Then Norman and the Spectre watch in on the quintessence of Highfather, Ganthet, the Phantom Stranger, and Shazam, with Spectre being the fifth person in the quintessence, discussing the predicament of Earth, where we also get a little bit of the origin of the Spectre from a wandering dead man, Dead Man the hero. We see a brief respite for Superman and Wonder Woman as they skip space rocks together. Next, we go to Billy Batson's brainwashing by Lex Luthor. Batman is watching over it through a remote. Lex and Bruce discuss the creation of more of his Batbots. Then, during the Mankind Liberation Front, they discuss strategy and how Superman is, in fact, more powerful than he has ever been, and that not even kryptonite will affect him the way that it used to. While Norman watches the Justice League, Flash pulls him into the present, where Norman tries to warn them of the impending doom when they get an alert from the Gulag that a riot has started. And then Superman tries to give orders, but is undermined by Wonder Woman. And as the riot starts, Lex plans to unleash Captain Marvel. Batman and his crew attempt to stop it with great success, catching all of the people except Captain Marvel, who has escaped and is still under Luthor's control. Superman and Wonder Woman argue over lethal force when they find out the Gulag is about to blow. Wonder Woman leads the Justice League to the Gulag to confront it, and Superman races to Batman. He finally convinces him they need to work together when the visions of apocalypse start unfolding. When Captain Marvel knocks Superman out of the sky.
So there's again with this series, there's just so much that is being done and so many awesome things. And so here's just some of the things that really kind of caught our eye and that sort of thing. And first and foremost, and again, we touched on this a little bit in the previous issue, but the Gulag that they're holding, the prison that they're holding all of the rebellious, let's say, metahumans, and is a blatant design ripoff of the Legion of Doom HQ from the Super Friends. So again, Alex Ross showing his love for the Super Friends and digging into that well. It's just I just love looking at it because it's so beautiful, and a beautiful rendering and interpretation of the Legion of Doom headquarters. And so that's just personally for me, just absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's the first thing I wrote down. Is like, point of interest, Gulag looks like the Legion of Doom headquarters.
Yeah, and when they switched to that, I actually heard the announcer from Super Friends goes, Meanwhile, in the Legion of Doom's headquarters, that's what I hear every time when I go to that page.
Yeah.
Because it's the one that most invokes that kind of thing. And I love the design too, because it's awesome. Some of the interesting things about Kingdom Come, and we haven't really talked a lot about it a whole lot, and so this is probably the perfect issue to do this in, on how much Kingdom Come has actually seeped into the current DC universe in different ways. One, the first one was Brandon Routh played the Kingdom Come Superman in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover of the Arrowverse TV series, and actually did a really good job with it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
and
Brandon Routh or Ruth. He's a very underrated Superman. He really is. He
absolutely.
genuinely does a good job with the role.
And then so that was one thing. Then but also in Crisis on Infinite Earths with the CW verse, we got to see Kevin Conroy play a live action Bruce Wayne who's using the armor and skeletal structure that Bruce is using in this as well. Now that Bruce, okay, I'm sorry for the spoiler on this one, but in Crisis, the live action Bruce that they meet, he is actually evil, and was, he was a psychopath. So,
And he was Bruce that was willing to cross the line and kill people.
right.
So in fact, it's made aware that he actually kills Superman, or he had killed Superman.
Yeah. And so then the other one is in Wonder Woman 84. Wonder Woman's armor is from that movie is based off of the design in this one as well. And so that's just kind of like neat little things, and we'll see that armor more next issue. We only kind of see like it in glimpses in this issue.
We don't see it. Yeah, you don't see it in its full glory in this issue. You do. It is there, and she is wearing it. But yeah, it's, you get to see it more in action in its full glory in the next issue. And so one of the things too that was just really awesome about what's been so great about the series is that not only has it, like Patrick was saying, has how it's inspired the look for the armor in Wonder Woman 84, and also with Ruth's performance in the Crisis of Infinite Earth TV crossover, but this particular miniseries, it's also touched upon again in the roughly around 2008 in the Justice Society comic written by Jeff Johns. The characters and some of the aspects of this world influenced that, and in fact, he's known as the Kingdom Come Superman, is also shows up and they do a couple of story arcs involving these characters. So there's just going to show just how iconic this series is to the comic book community, and including, and not just the comic book community, but like DC itself, and how highly regarded this series is with the combination of Mark Waid's writing and Alex Ross's beautiful, gorgeous artwork in this. And so it's just it's awesome at just how much this series has inspired other things. And in fact, it's a whole basis for it's you can easily call it the inspiration for the Injustice video games.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about that, but it definitely, you could definitely say that this was an inspiration, if not the direct inspiration of it. But it's one of, like, the Injustice thing is always the one question, like, what would happen if Superman decided to truly finally take over, because no one could stop him, potentially. One of my favorite parts is just is something that I mentioned in the synopsis of this issue of Superman and Wonder Woman. They're basically kind of like on a date almost, where they're skipping rocks out in space, and um, they're doing it while using the lasso of truth, and they're Superman and Wonder Woman are revealing more truths about themselves while holding it. But it's kind of cute, They're just like, what would superhumans do for dates? Oh, well, let's go into space and skip asteroids. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Um, and but it was really funny to see, you know, we've mentioned this, especially in the previous issue, about how Wonder Woman's uh, um, starting to take over, and her warrior side, her leader side, is so much more forthright now than it ever has been in comics, and so we can start really seeing they're going to be that they're coming to a head, that Superman and Wonder Woman are going to um, full on disagree about something, and it's coming close, and it happens in this issue where
Yeah.
Wonder Woman's like, yeah, let's kill these, let's kill them if necessary, and Superman's like, no, don't kill, and they just, they don't get along in
And so,
that.
and I'll tell you, with the relationship between Wonder Woman and Superman, I I really find fascinating, because you would think that with how similar, like especially when it comes to power set, how similar Wonder Woman and Superman are, that you would think that they would see more eye to eye. And what what's fascinating in this issue is that not only is Wonder Woman actually, like, DC is well known to have a trinity, and the trinity is Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. And it's interesting that, especially in the dynamic of this particular series, you see that Superman and Batman are actually more similar in their actions as compared to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, makes it very clear she has no problem that she will take a life if need be, has no qualms about it. Whereas, Superman, when Superman races to go see Bruce because he knows what's about to happen, he says, like, strip everything away from our relationship. We're both people that do not want life to be taken. We want every, so it's like, from any argument you can make about it, doesn't matter how, we may go about things differently, but the fact remains, we find life to be precious, and there's no reason to take a life. um, so it's interesting that actually happens here. um, and we see that, and then on top of it too, um, the fact that right before they go to battle, and I just absolutely love the descriptor here, and that, it's, Wonder Woman kisses Superman before they leave, and and even in the artwork, it's depicted as, it's a farewell. It's devoid, and it's like, I love the wording, is devoid of passion, and it's like the scraping. It sounds like a steel scraping against each other. So it's not like
Steel
a
scraping against
passionate,
marble.
you know, yeah. It was a symbolic gesture of, the we're done. It's a parting of a way kiss, um, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so it's just uh, it's it, it's really fascinating seeing that interaction with the relationship.
Yeah. And so it's just, and it's funny, like people always, they ship characters, and Superman and Wonder Woman become an official couple in the New 52 universe. So this was after Kingdom Come. Like Kingdom Come came out several years before the New 52 started. And so Superman and Wonder Woman date. And I was like, Superman belongs with Lois. Like, there's no doubt about it. But on paper, Superman belongs with Wonder Woman, because honestly, between the strength of the two of them, they're the only ones that can handle each other, um, in that way. And um, and so that was kind of fun and interesting to to see that kiss, and then eventually the full on relationship in Superman Wonder Woman, that comic series. Um, and because I mean it was a good relation. I didn't read all that much of that comic series. I think you did, Jeff. That was their relationship good in that series?
Oh
Did
yeah,
you?
it's phenomenal. Yeah, yeah, I love that series. I love the Superman Wonder Woman comic, and part of it was, well, and the other thing is too is that series was written by Charles Soule,
Okay,
and I
that
love
explains
his.
it.
I'm a huge fan of his writing. He's a phenomenal writer. Um, but it was a very well done series, and they work together. It's like, and the way that the new 52 Wonder Woman was is that she wasn't as uh, familiar with the human world, or man's world, as she likes to refer to it. And so it's just like, Clark was kind of showing her the ropes a little bit in the beginning as to how she could interact better with humans, and then the fact of like, and then on top of it too, going into explaining how the just wearing glasses works. It's like they don't even, it's like they don't expect to see us, and so if we just change up our look just a little bit, uh, they're we can interact and not be bombarded by who we are. And so yeah, it was a great series. Like it was very well done.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And so this is funny that Spectre makes an observation about the quintessence. I didn't know they actually had a group name until I read the issue Infinite Frontier number 0, where they're referred to as the quintessence. I didn't realize that this was the actual name of this group. Um,
Kind of like the Illuminati of the universe.
yeah, except for even more powerful. Because those are 5 heavy hitters when it comes to the universe.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
again, and just to clarify, just to who makes up the quintessence, and I love the way that they actually describe them in the comic book. The quintessence of the power cosmic. So it's like these are the heavy hitters of heavy hitters. So you have Ganthet, which he represents the guardians of the Green Lantern Corps. He's one of the beings of Oa, so an immortal. Then you have the wizard Shazam, not to be confused with Captain Marvel, but Shazam, the guy that resides over the Rock of Eternity and gave Captain Marvel his power. Then you have the Phantom Stranger, and honestly, I'm not super familiar with the Phantom Stranger, other than that fact that I know that he exists, and he is a weird dude. And something happened to him that made him the way that he is because of something bad that he did, if I'm not mistaken. Then you have the High Father, um, which he's kind of like, if you take the gods of Olympus, he's the Zeus. If you want to make that correlation, which I know can be a little confusing because the gods of Olympus actually also exist in um, the DC universe, but he's kind of like that. If you make that correlation, that's kind of like who he is. And then the Spectre makes up the fifth part of that quintessence.
yeah. And one of the interesting things Spectre points out was that, are you guys, bored, or are you guys only meeting to talk about Earth just to make sure the rest of you aren't going to get involved, to keep them in check? Because if the 5 of them got involved, I mean, who knows what would happen, you know, um, because
And
that would be
and
so much
and with their
power.
Right, and with their conversation, it's really interesting because, and Spectre brings up a great point, and while they're having the discussion, it's like they're all sitting around talking about Earth, and they're saying, you know, we shouldn't get involved because we've tried to help them before, and they just don't listen. So we shouldn't even waste our time. And in fact, in the grand scheme of things, they're really not that big of a deal anyways. And so the Spectre says like, here's a little bit of irony for you. You guys are all saying that in the grand cosmos, Earth is not all that important. However, all of you are now sitting around talking about Earth. So is it really not that important, or you just, or or you just have nothing else better to do?
Yeah.
And so and it's like, and it's a great point. It's like where we could talk about that. It's just like, oh, this is not that big of a deal, but it's like, but we've all been talking about this for an hour now. It apparently is a big deal. um so and it's like, because I always love, when you just have a normal conversation. Let's take a step back from the grand cosmic scale here for a second, and talk about how it's like, oh well, somebody comes up to you and is like, well, it's not that big of a deal, but could you make sure you don't do this, or these sort of things. It's like, well, obviously it is a big deal. So I love that qualifier that people throw in the front of their statements when they say, oh, it's not that big a deal, but so apparently whatever it is you're about to tell me is actually a big deal. So let me pay attention.
Yeah. Or it's like, when you have the time, meaning when you have the time right now, to do something, that's, you gotta love that. I love being told that. I was like, whenever you get a moment, can you do this for me? Oh, you mean you want me to stop whatever I'm doing right now and do what you want me to do? It's a fun thing a pastor gets to hear every now and again. And then one of the best moments in this comic is when Bruce experiences someone disappearing on him when his back is turned, because it doesn't happen very often, and Batman does it to other people all the time. It made me think of one of my favorite um, YouTube video series that I follow is the Honest Trailers, and one of the ones that they talked about, they did the Batman the Animated Series, which, if you have not watched Batman the Animated Series, you need to go and watch it because it is phenomenal. Um, and so one of the jokes they had about Batman the Animated Series was about how Batman is trying to psychologically torture Commissioner Jim Gordon into retiring or to death or something like that, however you want to put it. Because, and then they show a montage of different times that Batman scares the bejesus out of Commissioner Gordon and other people, and it's just really funny in that clip. So look that up. The Honest Trailer for Batman the Animated Series. It's great, and I love that Batman got his due process and had it vanish. And then they did the same thing in Justice League, where all of them disappeared except for Flash and Commissioner Gordon, and that was always funny too. When Flash is like, "Oh, I can't believe they did that," and Flash is the fastest man alive. Yeah.
The one person that it should be able to easily pull that off is the only one that doesn't.
But he's also not the rude. He's also not a rude person. So,
right. And one of the things too, it's you don't see this, and again, this is slightly spoilerish a little bit, but if you look closely at the panels, you'll kind of figure this out. I believe, if I remember correctly, this is something that's going to be explained a little bit more in the 4th issue. But you see Nightfire, who is the daughter of Starfire and Dick Grayson, interacting with the head of the League of Assassins. And so one of the things that happens in this is that once Bruce finishes his alliance with Lex and gets to the bottom of, and it's really great in this that the writers were like, so because you really think that it was like, wow, Bruce Wayne is actually truly teaming up with Lex Luthor. How desperate is Bruce for Bruce to team up with a villain? And fortunately, the faith that we have in Bruce is shown in that he's like, I'm not really teaming up with you. I'm only teaming up with you because I'm concerned about Captain Marvel and I need to know what's actually going on. And so he's like, now that I know, all right, everybody, attack. And so everybody there attacks the villains that have teamed up with Luthor, And you notice there's one hero, she's about to attack the head of the League of Assassins, and Nightfire steps in on and intercedes on his behalf, uh, because it's, again, if it's not outright said, it's strongly believed that that is actually Bruce's son with Talia, because it's made clear that it is Ra's al Ghul's, Ra's al Ghul's, I'm sorry, right, Ra's al Ghul's son, grandson. And so in this world, it's actually believed, if it's not outright said, uh, it's believed that that is Bruce's son. And so that's why Nightfire is, you can see Nightfire talking with him, because they would have that relationship, because of Dick's relationship with Bruce. So they would almost be like their cousins in a way.
Yeah, and it's always that interesting thing to take those looks at how characters are interacting with each other in this series. Like when Superman is watching the Earth from above, it's like Germany's clear, Africa's clear, so yet such and such is clear, and Dick and Roy are having conversations like, man, I don't know. They're starting to question if they're doing the right thing, and I'm like, no, you tell him. No, you tell him. And so even though that they're fully grown,
He can hear you.
yeah, I know they're fully grown. I'm going to go quote unquote mature adults. They still have that friend, just kind of that good friend, just brings that out of you and makes you that goofy kid even when you're 50 years old. Um, I mean, I've seen that happen with people from all over and several different walks of life, but you put them with that one friend and they're just like, ah! It was like, oh, they're like teenagers again. It was like, but you both have had hip replacements. Why are you acting like teenagers? It's just that kind of friendship. Um, and so that's always
And
fun.
again, and again, some of this stuff is just that's very subtle in Alex Ross's artwork. So it's one of the things that's really awesome about this series is that it's like just there's stuff that if you just really examine his artwork, you see these subtle little gray things, because it would 100% make sense for Nightfire to step up and, um, tell them to not attack her cousin, for all intents and purposes. Um, so yeah, so it's just great. And one of the things too that I really liked is, and he's a character that honestly I don't feel like he gets a whole lot of enough respect in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the superheroes. But Martian Manhunter is shown to, it's revealed that Martian Manhunter, of the original heroes, like the original wave of heroes, he continued to fight longer than everybody else, or that's what Bruce says. He's like, you held out the longest, um, and continue to do, and in a moment of weakness or desperation or whatever, he really opened his mind up to the world using his telepathic abilities. And what it did, and what that wound up happening is it actually broke him. And so he, and I just love and I love the removing of the veil that the Spectre does to show Norman who exactly this person is that's talking to Bruce, because he's in the human form, but he also has an intangible moment where he his hand passes through a cup, um, and Bruce is there talking to him and helping him and consoling him, and then you see Spectre grab the veil and lift it up, and it's like, oh, and by the way, this is what he actually looks like. This is Martian Manhunter. um, and so it's these great little moments again that, and again, it's only because I've read this series like so many times that I can focus on some of these little nuances that happen in this series. And then the very iconic last panel as well, with uh, Captain Marvel just standing there, hands on his hip, chest out, and just like, yeah, just really, uh,
Triumphant.
it's just a great image.
So we'll make sure that we share some of these panels with you guys through our Instagram and Facebook accounts. So um, we'll make sure we do that. Um, I love the Martian Manhunter, and so I kind of try to think about it with the Martian Manhunter. And the comment about Bruce saying that he has done this longer than anyone else. So depending on your understanding of the DC timeline and whichever one they're using, the Martian Manhunter sometimes is considered to have started operating before Superman reveals himself to the world as a superhero. And at least I think I remember that. I could be misremembering this. So that, Martian Manhunter has been around. Like, he wasn't actively doing hero work; he was doing his police work and things like that. Um, but but I actually like your understanding of it, Jeff, where that he held out longer than the rest of the original big seven of the Justice League, where Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Batman, and Aquaman, and Green Lantern all retired and went their separate ways. And Martian Manhunter was like, no, I'll keep doing this, because one of the interesting things when you see the Justice League series um, come out, the Martian Manhunter was a big staple of it. Like, I think he was in almost every incarnation of Justice League titles. I think he's the only one who was, because he was in Justice League Detroit. He was in International. Um, and Europe came from International. He was in the original Justice League when they fought Starro. Um, he was in Justice League Year One by Mark Waid. He was a main character. He was in Grant Morrison's JLA. I mean, you can't have Justice League without Martian Manhunter. I think the first time he wasn't in it wasn't a part of the lineup was when they rebooted Justice League after Infinite Crisis. I don't think he was a part of it. Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he wasn't a part of it. That's right. Because him and Aquaman were in the shadows, wanting to make sure that Justice League would be okay or something like that. So anyway, so that was the first time, was that one by Brad Meltzer was the writer. And Martian Manhunter wasn't a part of the a lineup of the team. Anywho,
So with the biblical theme with this particular issue, and again, this is something we will do in each issue, and then with the fourth one coming up, the final episode next week. The first page in each episode, in each issue, is always leading with the verse from Revelation, and so the verse comes from Revelation chapter 10, verse 3, and cried with a loud voice as when a lion roareth, and when he had cried, seven thunders uttered their voices. And again, I love like all these reference to like thunder, like being like Captain Marvel, and then the seven thunders being like the Justice League lineup typically is seven members. That's generally what the member lineup includes, is seven. Um, and so, and I love that continuation, and that the matchup with these verses on top of what's going on with Revelation. Um, but for this particular issue, the verse that really kind of stuck out to me comes from Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. Now, I do want to say this. I do want to qualify what we're about to talk about is that this one singular verse does not solely like qualify all that we're gonna talk about here when it comes to the biblical theme. I strongly encourage you to read the book of Hebrews. It's a phenomenal book. To truly understand what we're going to be talking about, you're going to want to kind of read. You want to read at least all of chapter 4, and in all honesty, you'll probably want to read chapter 3 as well, because it just gives you a good understanding of what we're going to talk about. So, in the very beginning of the issue, it starts off with you're seeing those scenes in the gulag, and you're seeing this giant hologram projector of Superman spouting off his beliefs, saying, you're not really prisoner, you're not prisoners here, you're here to be educated. We're here to teach you how to truly be responsible with your powers. And until you understand that, then you can't, it's like until you understand, you can't leave. And so the villain, or not the villains, but the quote unquote heroes make a great point. It's just like you're wanting us to be responsible with our powers, and you want, it's like you're espousing all of these beliefs, but what about the belief that you've imprisoned us and you're forcing us to be here? It's like you're wanting us to believe this like outdated philosophy, this, this things that they just didn't work. And so like and then another one of the heroes steps up and says, like, yes, like, we're the guys that kill, it's like we killed Ra's al Ghul. It's like you guys never faced the Slaughter Brigade, and it's just like, how would you have handled these situations and that sort of stuff. And um basically saying, it's like, Superman, your method it just doesn't work. It's not all leaving cookies out for Santa. Oh gee, oh golly gee willikers. And I even love the comment. It's like, yeah, it's like the man of tomorrow is more like the man of 1950. um you know but it can be really disheartening. That's one of the things that's like, and I know I've experienced this, and I'm sure Patrick has too, that one of the things that really happens when you're, a very devout believer in Christ, and you interact with people of when you interact with people of the world, and they attack your beliefs and start calling you dated. It's just like, that just doesn't apply. And this is like, why would you believe something that was written 2,000 years ago? Why would you allow it to control your life and all these things? And it is definitely a challenge for Christians. But one of the great things about when you look at the book of Hebrews, when you're dealing with chapters 3 and 4, the idea that, you know the the Bible is not just these accumulation of documents and beliefs. It's living, it's active, it's supposed to actively be a part of our lives, and helping influence all of our actions and the decisions that we make. And it shouldn't you shouldn't feel limited by the Bible. It's like, it's one of the things too that I when I when in my ministries, that I would tell people, it's like, the Bible isn't a list of don'ts, because that's what a lot of people view it as. They view the Bible as a list of don'ts. Like, no, 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 this is a list of things you can do. This is a list of what you're empowered to be able to accomplish, and the things, the what you can accomplish in this world. And don't we get so caught up in, it's like, oh, well, we shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. No, 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 no. You're actually missing the point. What the Bible is a an example of how we're supposed to have a relationship with God. And so when people will look at you when you're devout, that's like, oh, well, you just have outdated beliefs. It's like, it doesn't, it's like, it doesn't reflect our times. And it's like, you're right, it doesn't reflect our times, because we've moved, you know the, and in all honesty, it didn't reflect the times that was written in anyways. There was, it's like, I'll just for an example, when you look at Paul's teaching towards the church in Corinth, the culture in Corinth was that it was okay to go and have sex with the temple prostitutes even while you're married. And the rampant sexual immorality that was going on in Corinth, Paul was saying, it's like, no, that's not okay. Um, it's like, just because that's the culture you're in, doesn't mean you should join in. So it's the same in that same vein. So you're seeing so many moving away from what the scripture teaches, because it's not what culture dictates is acceptable. That doesn't matter. That's not the point of the Bible. The point of the Bible is to show you how to have a genuine, fulfilling relationship with God. And when you instead look at the Bible as these list of don'ts, you're missing the point of the Bible. The Bible is a guide for you to have that relationship with God, to not be lost in this, and to not be lost in this world. And so what it's also supposed to be helping, so in the book of Hebrews, what in these particular chapters, what the author is trying to show you is that it's like, for one, we need to step away a little bit from this attitude that the Jewish Christians have towards the Gentile Christians. Um, and one of the things that would happen is, like, Moses is highly revered in the Jewish culture, and as he should be. He should be somebody that should be respected and honored because of what he accomplished for his people. Uh, but Jesus is even higher than, Jesus is the culmination of what we should be expecting. Um, what we need to do is to be able to move on from him and recognize that Moses had his failings. Jesus, however, does not. He was tempted in every way that we have been tempted, but he did not sin. So we need to look to his example for what we need to do. So we need to move away from some of these, and what Paul is, or what the author of Hebrews is trying to explain, is it's like the the old covenant has been fulfilled. We need to take some strides away from the old covenant and recognize what the new covenant under Jesus has established for us. So we need to recognize that and embrace the new covenant that Jesus has set out for an example for us, and that we can, what Jesus accomplished is showing us of how a relationship with God looks like. We need to embrace that and not be um, looking down on people that are Gentile Christians, and embrace that our life with Christ and with God is this active thing that we need to actively participate in, and not look down on this new this new generation of followers, because honestly it didn't work before. Or, well, we didn't well and it's not that it didn't work, it's that we failed it. We failed the old covenant. So Christ had to step in and fulfill it, and then establish a new covenant with us. And so ultimately what I'm saying is, we can't be so caught up. We can't be afraid to look at the world and be like, just because the world says this is okay, um, this is not what Christ has planned for us. Christ exemplified what a relationship with God looks like. And our job as a Christian is to try and match that to the best of our ability. We are going to mess up. We are going to fail that relationship with God, but that doesn't mean that our goal shouldn't be to have the relationship with God like Jesus did, because he's fully human while also being fully God. He exemplified what that perfect relationship looks like, and those are our goals. Like, so you see this on social media all the time. It's like, hashtag relationship goals, sort of stuff. Like, why do we not see that with those hashtag relationship goals with God? That's the ultimate relationship that for any of us to have, is our relationship with him. And so even though the world will say, no, it's like, you don't need to act like that. It's like, it's okay to do this. It's no big deal. No, that's not how this works. Uh, God made it clear as to how he has intended for our relationship to look like with him, and how we're supposed to interact with the world. And so just because the world is telling you one thing, it's like, this is acceptable, this is okay, doesn't mean it's actually okay when you look at what scripture defines as our relationship.
And so, one of the things that we want to emphasize in reading the scriptures is how, um, in all of this, understanding the full context of scripture is important for to fully understand the message that it's given to us today, from what was, as Jeff said, that many of these things were written thousands of years ago, um, uh, and how they apply to us today. So you have to have a full understanding to get the whole message of it. And um, and so something that I just want to point out with this scripture of Hebrews 4, verse 12: for the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword, penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow, judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. Um, one of the one of my favorite things that they do with um, the prisoners in the gulag is point out, they're like, yeah, one of the things that we said is that, they put out, they took out Eclipso, they took out Ra's al Ghul, the Slaughter Brigade. I was like, yeah, you guys are such a great job of heroes that you didn't even care that you opened fire on a cable car filled with people in it. You didn't care. And so they're trying to be like, whoa, we had to change with the times and yada yada yada. And they were, it was like, you didn't have to deal with what we had to deal with. It was like, well, something that I've kind of come to understand is that any sin or any wrong that any of us have committed has already been committed. You're not going to come up with a new sin. Um, it's already been done. So that should be kind of a comfort that, the sin, like one of the biggest struggles that I find that people have with sin is that they feel ashamed that they've done it, because most of the time people know what they did is wrong and feel bad about it. That's what a normal person usually feels about it. But also what we kind of get tricked into by Satan and the world is that it's like, no, 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 it's only your sin. You're the only one who has had impure thoughts. No, you're the only one who steals or lies at work and things like that. No, no, you're the only one, and isolate yourself. And so in this, we need to make sure that we are aware that we can be connected to other people. And that's why going to church and being in fellowship with fellow believers is so important, because you can form a community that can help you when you are facing those sinful times. And so when these prisoners are not getting it and not, listening to what Superman has to say about being a hero, that kind of, they're missing the point. Now, granted, if Superman hadn't left, he might have been able to lead the heroes. Like, he was giving up, and he's lost his humanity. He's, I mean, once again, like the whole Cal Clark thing came up a little bit in um, uh, this issue. And then on top of it, another time he even, refers to them as Earthlings again, and it's just one more time of emphasizing how Superman he's gone full hog into the super part and is leaving the man part behind, and so he's losing that dual identity that he has, and he needs both to be able to lead the hero community the way he's supposed to. um, and so that's what each one of us is supposed to do that. um, we have these dual natures within us. We have our human body, but we have our soul and spirit. It's all connected. It's all one. So we're supposed to do everything all at once. And so we have to be. And I love the phrase. We have to be in the world, not of the world. Um, and Superman has forgotten that, and so he isn't able to be um, uh, the hero that he needs to be, because he's forgotten what the world is like. And so that's why it's so important for us as Christians to be a part of the world. Now, let not doing what the world says, but doing what God says. But we can't disciple without going out and finding people that need to be discipled. So there's lots of stuff that can be said in this. And so we'll wrap things up now so that we're not going too long. But just, we're thankful. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, but anyways, so let's rate the issue.
It's it's again, it's a solid. It's a phenomenal five. Like, this is phenomenal artwork, great story, and I love like, to me the best thing about this particular issue is it's like because in the first two issues, you're holding your breath almost, and it's like, oh my gosh, did Batman really team up with Lex Luthor? Is Batman a bad guy? And then you're if especially for those of you guys out there that are huge Batman fans, your faith is you can breathe again and recognize that Batman is still a hero. He only teamed up with Lex Luthor in the form of finding out what was going on with the biggest wild card in Captain Marvel. Um, and then again, it's just like the plot is phenomenal, the writing is great, and then on top of it too, oh my gosh, the artwork. Alex Ross is at the top of his game here, and just absolutely phenomenal in what he's doing. So and again, it's another solid five.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 5 as well. Um, it's perfect, and and it's funny. There's not a lot of action. There's a lot of talking. When I was rereading this issue to get prepared for this episode, I was like, man, there's a lot of talking, but it was so important. But everything underneath it, even with all the talking, there was this tension. And honestly, when I was reading it, if you're familiar with the movie The Dark Knight, there's this buzzing sound when the Joker's kind of like doing things, um and just kind of like there's an underlying like tension music. Like there would be nothing but tension music in this issue of Kingdom Come, because there's just so much of it and it's constant. And so even though there's not a lot of punching, there's not a lot of you know fighting or anything like that, it's still pretty action packed in my opinion, um because of just the tension. It's so amazing. So I'm going to give it a 5. um
And and again, so that this wraps up the third issue of Kingdom Come. So anybody with questions out there for us, for any of our biblical discussions that we've talked about in this episode, or anything else, any other questions that you have for us, any involving uh, comic books, anime, just or just anything in general. It's like we're also big. Patrick and I are also big sports fan. So any questions that you have for us, just feel free to email us at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Twitter at frickityf, or at frickityfrack on Instagram and Facebook. Just know that you guys are deeply loved, and that God loves you. We love you, and remember, same bad time, same bad channel. We'll see you next week.